Here we are in the second half of the sermon, and the second half, I just kind of want to, in one sense, take a step back and look at where we've been over the last couple of years. A couple of years ago, we sat down and as elders and deacons and staff, and we had spent a weekend praying and looking to see what was the Lord calling us to. And one of the things that we looked at that time was how important it was to make sure that we're doing everything going in the right direction for His glory, including the attitudes of our hearts and as leaders, making sure that leadership is lined up with what God has called us to. And we called it Vision 2015, and actually we called it Foundations 2011. We laid out 6 things that we said that we wanted to do, and it was really too much that year, but we did it anyways, and it's still been a work in progress over the last couple of years. The first thing was we changed the name of the church, and many of you had requested that, and so we did that to lower the barriers, and I can tell you right now, it is paying dividends. Many of you are here today because we did that. We lowered that barrier. There was a bit where we lost some people. And I found this out afterwards. They say that 15% of the people who vote no to something like this leave the church. And I said, no way. Why would they do that? I mean, we're just trying to reach people. And guess what? 15% of the no votes left. And so that happened, but God is working. The second thing that we said that we were going to do is develop a facility master plan. And so we took some money and we laid it aside, and we have at that time a 56-year-old building, now 58. We said, okay, there were some things that we did, and over the last couple of years, that plan has been made. The third thing we did was to implement a communication plan. And in using the different technologies of how do we communicate, we readjusted some staff, and now I like to call affectionately Sue the czar of communication, and we are doing, I think, better than we ever have in communicating that. And her and Lisa are making an excellent team. They started a blog this week where they're putting things forward. We said we're going to develop a complete discipleship plan, and over the last couple of years in the life groups, we've been going through those steps, and again, that is an ongoing work in process. We said that we wanted to develop an effective evangelism plan, both globally and locally. We are to be witnesses in our Jerusalem, Judea, Samaria, and to the ends of the earth. And our missions team really be encouraged from a global mission standpoint. For the NAB, our church is really the model of connecting with another church, as we have down in Paraguay. This, Lord willing, will be our 4th year where we connect with them. We go down there and help them plant churches, and we have a real connection, a real bond with them. Matter of fact, Lucas Barrios, is that how we say the name? Is here from Paraguay right now. He's here for a few days. Pastor Alcides is going to be in, so we have a real connection, a real partnership with them. And then on the local area, we've started to celebrate recovery, and we are making some inroads into the community. We got a ways to go, as always, but we have started that plan. And then the last thing we said we wanted to do is develop and implement a connection process where we take first-time people and we find a way to plug them in. And so that's what we were endeavoring to do a couple years ago, and I think God is working. You need to be encouraged. God is bearing fruit in and through your lives and the life of this church. Last year was the best year that we have had financially in the almost 10 years that I have been here. Dear Mr. Brewer was not pained every time he looked at the financial statement, and God has brought people in, and God is working in a mighty way, and so we are encouraged in that. Does any church pump on all cylinders? No, we're not perfect. We got a ways to go in every area. I get that, but be encouraged. I think there's good things that are happening, but there's no coasting. Here we are, 2013, and again, the danger is, we've done a lot. Let's just kind of take a breath, but we can't. We need to press on. We need to go forward with what God has called us to do. And in this year, when we get done with the service, and we're going to have a meeting afterwards for the members, there is implications on the budget, and we will be raising the budget fairly substantially, and that will be talked about then. But I want you to know why. I want you to know the vision behind it, because it is important that you get that. One of the things that the elders decided to do over the last couple of years is look at the gifting of the staff and really try to play us and put us into our place of strength. And we have had Pastor Jason with us for 6 years now. Now, the average youth pastor stays anywhere from 18 months to 4 years, depending on the stats that you read. And Pastor Jason is feeling called to the broader church ministry. And so we have had him started preaching more in the fall, and the goal is that we would transition him intentionally, that he would have oversight over our family and children ministries in a way that we never have before, that it would strengthen our strategic vision, which is to reach the families of the community through effective children and student ministries. And we want to build a solid paradigm, unlike we ever have done before, which talks about from the cradle to the dorm, and be extremely intentional in that. The people that God brings in, it's not like it used to be. They're not coming from a biblical worldview. There's some that need help and training, and so we believe that putting those resources there will be of great benefit. I think it's a great benefit to have Pastor Jason preaching every other week. He's an excellent teacher, and he will only get better as time goes on. And I think that's a blessing to the congregation, because let's face it, you've been hearing me for almost 10 years now, and I know that variety is a good thing to have, and he feels called to it, and Lord willing, we would be a team. I know his desire is to stay here, and that we would be a strong team for years to come. Now, one of the gifts that the pastors has given me, or the elders have given me, is to be able to, when Jason is preaching, to free up some of my time to do the things that I have a passion for, and that is the whole idea of connecting with people, sharing the gospel with people, and then doing more caring and shepherding. And so that's what I have done. And I don't say this to whine, but very, very few people know the pressure that is on my shoulders on any given Sunday. You guys have, and again, I don't want to say that to belittle in any way, but there's a lot. There's things that are going on with people's lives that you have no clue. And so this has been a great gift, and is a great gift, that I can spend time caring for different people and shepherding and being there when your loved ones are dying, and having the time to spend with my family. I mean, it's been a good thing. They've encouraged me to take a day off, and I do on hunting season, and when I don't, I bank them all for hunting season. So it all works out. But I think that this plan that we have is a good thing. So that's one of the things in this year that we're going to be looking at. The second thing is, we've talked about this master plan facility, and we really believe that now is the time to act upon it. We have a 58-year-old building, and so we're going to start the process of a capital campaign, and we've seen the difference that putting the doors into the chapel have done, and made that gathering space. It has changed the whole attitude of the church in one sense, and so we rejoice in that. But we have prayed about, and through the elder forum looked at the responses and said, what are the priorities? And the first priority that we have is going to be to do some renovation on this sanctuary. I don't know, but we're working a lot of things. One of them, and this is going to start immediately with some of the money that we do have, is starting to work on sound panels, because this sanctuary was not built for electric things, and yet it's changed. And we're not going back to the old way. This is what we do. This is what we are. This is the future. To see the kids in worship and leading worship is an amazing and great thing, I believe. And so we're going to be doing that also. Remember that picture I showed you of Robin and Wags? See the carpeting? Well, guess what? That was from 1982. I talked to Mr. Brewer, who came in 61, And he said the red carpeting was here, and I think it's original equipment. Now, if we're going to quabble over if it's 51 or 58 years old, the bottom line is it's looking bad in some places. And there are some of you, I doubt if many of you have 58-year-old carpeting in your house. So we think it's time. We think it's time to paint. I got my trusty flashlight here. We had a leak a few years back. We fixed the leak, but we never painted it. It's a big deal to paint this. We got some cracks in the wall, and I could shine some lights in different places, but you all get mad at me. And the bottom line is, I think we need to have correct theology. This is not the house of God from the standpoint of God does not dwell here, but where two or three are gathered, there he is in the midst, and we are here worshiping, and we do what we do for the glory of God. And so I think it's appropriate that we do fix some things. The lights, we know sometimes when the lights are turned down, it gets that strobe effect, and it's old lights, old control panels. It's something that they feel they need to work on. And then the whole concept of our pews, they're not in code nowadays, and most people find it very difficult to slide in and out. So at minimum, we're going to space out what we're doing, space them out, and there's more options to that as well. So we want to work on this sanctuary to upgrade it and to change some things. It's needed. And also, because our vision is towards our children, we are going to be looking strategically at the needs in the children's ministry right now. Here's where the junior high meets, and so we want to work on things and address those needs to make sure that we are doing what we can. Storage needs continues to be issue, so we're going to be looking at that. And then also the whole idea that we have a building that has been here since 1955. Any critical repairs will have to be dealt with. We talked about, there was word talked about at the elder forum of elevators, but that is really a fourth priority, and Lord willing, if we raise enough money, that would be a great thing. At the Buck Dinner Friday night, there was a gentleman that basically had to be carried down, and so from time to time it is needed, but it is if Lord willing we would raise enough money, we could do that. Here's what it comes down to. The issue is not the building. The issue is people. We want to be keeping the vision in front of us, that we would be about winning and helping people, help people make Christ the center of their lives. And so when we do that, God's going to use us. I mean, if you think about it, if we have our vision, we have our mission, if we help people make Christ the center of their lives, if we are growing in that, if we as a people are growing for the glory of God, he's going to use us. He's going to make a difference in this community using instruments. He uses means. And so may we understand that we can't coast. We can't just do things that don't matter. We have to be intentional in the things that we do, in our evangelism, in our discipleship, and our strategic vision to reach the families of the community through effective children and student ministries. We need to stay humble. We need to stay pure. We need to be a fruit-bearing people that live for his glory. And we set aside our agendas and we live to do what brings glory to him. And so that is where we believe the Lord's leading us to. And I'm going to have John and Dottie, if they would come up, and I want them to just share a story of why we do what we do. So if you guys can come on up at this time, that would be a great help.
Hello, my name is Dottie Holcomb, and John and I want to tell you about a young man that has changed our lives, and I know that he's changed many of yours as well. I was in the church office running off some material around 7 years ago, and our secretary was talking to a woman on the phone. And this woman, I could tell, had no idea about our church, what we did, and she didn't know where it was located, but I could tell from the conversation that she needed a ride. And I thought to myself at that time, should I get involved in this? Or Robin didn't ask me anything. And I also thought, why did I come in to the office at this time to run off one sheet of paper? So finally, after wrestling with my thoughts and God's will for me, I did get involved. And that day, John and I met Kavan's grandmother, Val. She started to attend some of the time, and many of you reached out to her, so she continued to come. She also said that she had a grandson, Kavan, that she thought might be interested in coming to the church. And Kavan at that time was around 9 years old. So we would pick up Kavan and bring him to church. And right around that time, Vacation Bible School was starting. And so we invited Kavan, and he had his stepbrother, Devon, and they loved coming every day. So we picked him up every day, and after it was over, John would take him out for lunch, and they loved that as well. Eventually, the grandmother, Val, moved to Inkster, but Kavan continued to attend our church. And at first, we provided all the transportation he needed because his family would not help out. God began working in Kavan's heart at one of the youth retreat, winter retreat centers, and that's where Kavan accepted the Lord, and he was baptized here at Crosspointe sometime later. We often took him with us for the family retreats up north, and he rode a horse for the first time, and he loved it, and he became part of our church family. Kavan was in the 8th grade at that time, and he was enrolled in a Detroit school, and he ended up not going to school at all because it was not going well, and he did not finish the 8th grade. John and I had been praying for God's direction. This was so huge for us to decide, what God's direction was, whether to get involved. Of course, we had his family too, and we didn't want to overreach any of that as well. So we did a lot of praying. Many of you prayed along with us. And finally, financially, we were able, along with your help, to send him to Macomb Christian School, where he is attending today. Many of the teachers from the very beginning reached out to Kavan. If they had not, he would still not be attending that school. But they reached out to him in ways that you wouldn't believe to help him to be a success. Kavan spent much time also with the Switek family, learning good study habits, being tutored, and participating in their family life. And John and Kavan, during that 8th grade year, worked on a science project together. It was a great one. It was making peanut butter cookies, leaving out ingredients and putting in ingredients, and they worked a long time on this, and Kavan received a second place reward for that time. But that's since his 8th grade year, and I said, I want you to come back and make the cookies like they should be. But John's going to tell you about his 9th and 10th grade years.
Well, one little thought, when I took him out to Macomb for the first time, he needed to take a test. And the results of the test was that he was rated as a junior or senior in high school. That was unbelievable. This is for a young man that never finished 8th grade. He had the potential. Math was not one of his strongest points, though. But in 9th grade at Macomb, Kavan tried out for basketball. We found out he's not a good basketball player. But he started playing in the band. He was tutored in several subjects. One of the highlights was the homecoming basketball game when, as a 9th grader, he was voted the prince of the 9th grade class. When his name was mentioned, the students went wild. He was asked who influenced him the most, and he said it was the people of this church. This year, Kavan's in 10th grade at Macomb. He is blossoming into his own right. He is taking charge of doing his own homework, scheduling his time, and calling for his own rides. Which I'm going to digress here and tell a funny story. Last year at his 16th birthday here at church, One of our members who had picked him up countless times told his story and just absolutely broke us apart. At 5:30 in the morning, she received a phone call. Yo, what you doing? Kavan needed a ride to school. At 5:30 in the morning, he made that call. At church here, he is now playing his guitar in the orchestra. And with the youth, he is helping out to celebrate recovery in many areas, such as leading the music occasionally. Kavan right now is on a winter retreat with our young people. Kavan has been a blessing to both Dorothy and I, and we are truly excited to see what the Lord has in store for him. Kavan says that someday he wants to be our youth pastor. Kavan has reached out into his family, and right now, downstairs, he has two of his siblings here at our Sunday school class, and he has another sibling that wants to maybe sing in the choir. I can't help but think about what he said at the homecoming when he asked who influenced him the most, and he said it was the people of this church. Thank you all. To God be the glory of all the things that he has done and will do.
Amen. You know, I'm struck by, I should have thought of this when I was preparing my sermon. The reason this church exists still is because people like the Holcombs, people like the Leongs, and many of you live out the gospel. Be a Christian. And if we keep being Christians, God's going to use us. It is an amazing, amazing thing. I got a couple pictures. I saw this, and here's Kavan a few years back at the winter retreat, and a young man, and now you look at him, and he's this big guy, and I always say to him, you may be taller than me, but you'll never be uglier than I am. Just remember that. But you think about it, this vision that we have, it's not about brick and mortar, it's about lives. And so we as elders and leaders and deacons and staff are coming and saying, this is the direction that God is calling us to, and we believe and would hope and pray that you would support what God is doing, and that you would come alongside the vision, and that it's more than just money, it's more than just doing what God's called us to do, but it would be that idea that you individually live like a Christian and impact somebody's life. That's what it's all about. If we do that, then God wouldn't close the doors of this church. And so my prayer is that we would live for his glory. Let's stand, and we're going to be dismissed in a word of prayer. Lord, I come before you. And again, I just think of your goodness to this church. And I thank you that you have moved in people's lives to give of themselves first. And you have used them to change people's lives. And Lord, I pray that you would work in our lives, that we would be humble before you. Lord, you oppose the proud, but you give grace to the humble. I pray that you would move. I pray that you would show yourself great. And Lord, as we go into this next year, as we go into the business meeting, may you be glorified by what is said and what is done. And so we thank you. We pray that you would use all of us, that Christ would be the center of our lives, and that you would receive the glory. And we give you the thanks in Jesus' name. Amen.